Here we are, people. We're underneath another car. We're doing some fluid filming. As you can see, I got my gun set up, and we're using the wand with the straight tip right now. We're going up in some of the subframes. I had to pull the engine cover, the plastic cover off to access some of the stuff, but what I wanted to show you was this lady had recently went into I put a new plastic cover underneath for her because she had a big hole in it. And the other night she went into she went into a ditch, missed a driveway, and as you can see here, this is plastic on top of the exhaust manifold cover, and there's more over here. This is not a plastic coat they put on it from the factory. This is where the ditch had pushed the plastic panel up in and had stuck to it and actually melted some of the cover. So unfortunately for her, the cover has a little damage now, the brand new one we just put on. I am going to take and see if I can't patch it with a piece of metal and rivet it in. But what we're here for today, people, is, let me show you. Do you see this heat shield cover here on top of this piece of exhaust manifold? You ever get under your car, or be driving your car and you hear a rattling at certain RPMs? Okay, so what that is, I don't know if you can see that. You see there's a couple holes here. This one here was an actual bolt that had broken off, and this one was already out right here. So fortunately the cover's in good shape because it's stainless, I believe. What we've got here for a fix, I've got a couple of bolts. They're not brand new, but they're good steel. They're in good shape, and we're gonna go ahead and grease these up and put them in. But this just goes to show you, when you do any kind of undercarriage work or looking at over fluid filming, you should actually do an inspection of everything to make sure, because this is something that could be aggravating someone going down the road hearing that rattle at idle or at a certain speed. So we're going to go ahead while we're under here and we're going to fix these up. Let me lay you right here, as you can see what I'm doing here, people, because that's not the only part that I'm fixing. What we had here up front, I noticed that this piece here was broken. You can see it. It's all, the end of this goes over the pipe, and it was just rotted off. So this holds the front piece up here. And what I did is I got a piece of steel, and I have a Beverly shear in the garage, and I cut a piece of 16 gauge steel and drilled the ends, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this around and put a bolt through here. Okay, now just a hint, if you're doing this type of stuff, make sure you put the holes in it first before you wrap it around the pipe. But we're going to go ahead and put it up here, see how it works. It's looking like we're going to be okay. Let me get the longest of the ones. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I don't have my tripod. I'm not sure where that went. But always make sure you put a little anti-seize on them. Even though it's going to be in a hot area, we're going to do our best to mitigate any kind of issues. So the point is with this is you don't want it so big that it flops around. You want it small enough that you have to kind of struggle to get the bolt on, because when it tightens down you want it to hold, if you know what I'm saying. So we're going to go ahead and push that through. Okay, there's that. This baby's 10 millimeters, so we're going to go ahead and grab our trusty 10 millimeter. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and proceed to snug this up a little bit. Now, what you don't want to do is tighten it all the way down at first, okay? Because here's why. We've got to get them other bolts in the back. Let me see if I can just get this on here. That's the balance you've got to find with a situation like this, is you're trying to balance out the right size, if you know what I mean. And the problem being right now is this washer's so big. There we go. The washer's so big, I might have to go with a smaller nut on there. Let me be right back. Let me get a pair of needle nose to hold that. So what I'm going to do, people, is I'm going to use these to hold it because my fingers are not small enough to pinch that baby. So we're going to pinch it like that. There we go. Now we've got her started by hand. So sometimes you need to, if your fingers aren't strong, my fingers are strong, but they're not strong as some people's, if you know what I mean. But this here will do the same thing. It'll take that flange and pinch it. Let me show you what we got here. Let me get you a little closer. Do you see the scenario now? The washer is actually hitting up there, but that's actually good because it's going to help tighten it down. And as you can see, that wraps up around the exhaust flange here. But what we're not going to do is tighten it down yet, because if these holes are off right here, we need to make sure we get this hardware in first. So let's go ahead and we'll put you here. Okay, let me get you underneath here so you can see what's happening, and I'll bring you with me along the journey underneath this car so you can see exactly what you're dealing with sometimes when you're fluid filming. But that's a good conversation to have, because right now it's getting towards the season where the weather's starting to change here in upstate New York. And if you don't get your car fluid filmed in the warmer part of the weather, like the fall time, get a nice 75, 80 degree day. If you don't do that, then you're basically, your undercarriage is laughing at you, saying we got another year of salt and brine going to hit all that metal. And it's going to wreak havoc upon your substructure. And let me tell you, it don't take too many years. It really don't take too many years for the salt to take effect on your vehicle. So we're up here, we're trying to get this now. You can see already how that situation right there is already kind of a little too tight. So we're going to see what we can do to, there we go. We use the vice grips again. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and drop this bolt through the top. Now what I do when I dismantle vehicles, if I take anything apart or whatever, like my daughter wrecked one of her cars and the insurance company wanted it back, so we wound up she bought the car back relatively cheap, and we stripped the engine, transmission stuff out of it, because she has the same exact car. She bought the same exact car, but all this hardware you see, I took the time and I stripped all the bolts out of it, because a lot of these are, you'd have to go buy these, you know what I mean? But we recycle stuff, you know, and it actually is the same type of situation. A lot of these bolts and nuts right here, as you can see, have a captured washer, and they're kind of handy to have because it helps hold it down. Now I hope you can see that. Let me see if I can bring you closer. So we're dealing with these ones here. We're going to be tightening these up now. Let me see if I can't get up above with this. And that's the challenge. That's why you need 50 different tools, because you got to be able to come up above and hold it, if you know what I mean. Now we're going to tighten these ones down, because these ones are already, there we go, these ones are already in position, and then we'll go back up front and we'll tighten down the other scenario. it has the little band clamp we built. And I'm going to take you in the shop afterwards and show you how we built that. So let's get this one run down. If I can get the... There it is. There it is. So now this one will be good for another 5 or 6 or 7 years, however long it takes this exhaust to destroy these bolts. But we'll keep an eye on it now, periodically, now that we see what's happening. But as you can see, that heat shield's not going to jump around now. So let me bring you back up front here. For our finale, we'll go ahead and put this one on. Now what I did is I took the old clamp and I measured it. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to get somewhere in the ballpark, right? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this so it's not hitting that plastic, basically. So we'll go like this. And what I did was I measured the other one to kind of get a rough idea how big that strap had to be. And as you can see, as we tighten this down, this is a wonderful measurement. It was 8 inches is what I measured. And it don't look like 8 inches, but by the time you flatten it out with all the little gussets and everything on the ends, all these little bends, look how nice and snug that is. Let me bring you up here and show you. Look how snug that is now. You can't move it, and that's what you want. You want that heat shield up on top to protect the engine and all the components. There's a rubber bushing right here underneath this control arm, the sway arm, and that's kind of what they probably put it there for, is to protect that and to protect this other joint over here on the sway arm. And there's some wires up here. You can see there's some wires up in here. It probably keeps the heat off those, but we're going to go ahead and finish fluid filming this vehicle. And as you can see, you try to get up in all these pockets up in here. You use the wand, the 360-degree wand. Let me see if I can do the wand action. It sprays 360, and it coats the inside of the lower control arm instead of just coating the surface. You do want the surface coated, and as you can see, it's like a wax. I don't know if you can see this. It's like a wax. Once that hardens up, that's a really good preventative. It's better than rubberized undercoating, in my opinion, because rubberized undercoating, if you could only see a vehicle after so many years, if you peel back some of the rubberized undercoating, you'll see that the salt worked its way behind some of the voids, and it started to rot the steel and compromise the metal welds and everything else. But here's the other positive on a situation with the fluid film is, every year, if you have a quality person doing it for you, and what I mean by that is not someone just spraying the surface where you can see it, but actually pulling the panels down and actually going up in the frame rails, like up in here, going up in here and putting the wand all the way through there and spraying all the directions so that on the outside and the inside, it's coated. A lot of people ain't going to know if you did that or not unless you crawl under your vehicle and actually take a borescope and go up in there. You're not going to know. So you really need to trust the person that's doing it for you. You really need to say to yourself, I have faith in that person that they're going to do it as if it was their own. And the good thing about that is when you're doing the fluid film, you're looking the vehicle over to find possible things like this heat shield. That's something that could really, really aggravate somebody. Like if you've ever had one rattling, it's very it's like a Chinese torture. It's like water dripping on your forehead. It's just ridiculous because you're like trying to find out where it's coming from. You're thinking to yourself, something's obviously coming loose, or you don't feel as confident in your vehicle with it doing that. So we've captured that. We're going to show the person that, and we're going to let them know that we took care of it as if it was our own. And we promised to take you to the shop. We're going to do that. Let me get you up out of here. Okay. So the other scenario where I want to show you what we did, how we made that how we made that bracket. And here's just one of my many buckets, okay, that I have. All this the steel, these bolts, these all come off of a vehicle, and let's call it a foreign vehicle, because it came off of a Hyundai. And you know, the steel's not the greatest of those materials, we understand that, but all the little clips and stuff, we save them all, because when you need one of these and you're missing one, how do I put this, you're not trying to do something other than put a clip in there, and where are you going to go find one unless you go to the dealer or a junkyard? So I always put these back in these buckets. I've got several buckets. I use old windshield fluid buckets. I've cut a big hole in the side and I use those. But what I wanted to show you was, and here's one of those nuts here. Let me show you. Okay, up close. It's got a captured washer. Excuse me. It's got a captured washer, and it really is a nice feature that you're not going to find at, say, Tractor Supply or whatever, unless you go to the specialty bolts, and they may have something like that. But this is right here in your garage. This is something that you say, I already have one. I don't have to run down the store and pay the corporation, if you know what I mean. But here's what we've got, people. This is a piece of steel. It's 16 gauge, and it's sturdy, right? But you say to yourself, how do I get a bracket out of that? What I did was I took my trusty my ruler, and I laid it on there, and I drew a line. I drew a line on there, and with the line on there, what I did was I brought it up to the Beverly shear, and we put it in here like this, and of course you can see the action, right? You just go ahead and run this lever arm down, and you have a strip of steel. Then we took it over here to the trusty anvil. We flattened it out, and then what we did was we used these pair of Weiss. I think they're called Weiss. These are actually a siding tool. We clamped it, and on the side you can see the little increments right there. I think we put it at like 3/4 of an inch, and then we bent the tabs just a little bit on the ends. But before we did that, we went out here, okay, and we used our step drill, and as you can see where the hole is there, we drilled through the metal first before we bent the tabs. Now let me show you what this is the new cover. You can see what day I put it on, the 18th. It wasn't long ago, it was last week. But you can see here where the muffler, she went in the ditch and it must have pushed up on this lower panel. And look what this did. So that's only going to continue to melt onto the exhaust. Okay, so what we're going to have to do, and what happened was before she had a huge hole here, it was letting snow and ice in. And that's the whole point of these covers, is to protect your underside of your vehicle. But we have to clean this off here, or it's going to continue to smell and burn onto her exhaust. We're going to cut this off, and we're going to take a piece of that tin, and we're going to manufacture here, and we're going to put some rivets. And this will be flat to the cover. We'll do another one here. And at this point is they'll be able to say, we did the best we could with the situation we had, and we did it as a DIYer. We didn't go down to the shop. We didn't say, oh, Mr. Subaru, could you please fix us up and bend us over the stump and treat us like, you know, a stepchild. We didn't do that. We turned around and said, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to use our brain, and we're going to figure out with what we have here at the shop, as if, you know, you're trying to save money, people. That's the point, right? You're not trying to just willy-nilly throw money out the door. I mean, you go to the grocery store, you cut coupons, and you try to save money on ground beef, but you don't save money on your vehicle. It doesn't make sense. You don't need to, I mean, what would that bracket cost and them bolts if you had to go to Subaru? Just do the math. You're looking at least 20, 30 bucks, okay? You're looking at the time for someone to have to install that for you. And if you're going to Subaru, you better put your double pair of pants on, like as if when you were little, and you'd put double underdraws on, so when you got spanked it didn't hurt as much. You better put 2 or 3 pairs of underdraws on if you're going to go to the dealer, because they're not going to show no mercy. They're not going to let up on you, and they're going to watch you jump around and hobble around after you pay that long limousine dollar. But this is Bry. We're over here. We're making things happen for people. We're making their dreams come true, and we're saying, let's save them money in the process. Even though they make a mistake, even though they go into a ditch, so to say, literally in life, we're trying to be there as a friend to shake a hand, make a friend, and say, maybe next time you'll hit the driveway in the right operation. That way you're not half in the ditch and half out of the ditch. We're full service over here as a friendship. We're full service on this page, and we try to say to ourselves, if you are here watching the video, we want you to take something from it that says, don't be a hard ass today. Try to be nice. Even if someone treats you wrong, go ahead and just treat them nice today, because you know what? What is your other option? Just to be mean back? Sometimes you just got to let people be miserable old bastards, and you let them move on down the trail, and you say to yourself, it's not going to ruin my day. It's not going to live rent-free in my head. I'm going to move forward, and despite what people do to you, you can't control how they act, but what you can control is how you respond. And that, my friend, is where the real power is saying to yourself, I'm not going to give in to their hatred. I'm not going to give in to a beautiful day like this and say, I'm going to be a miserable person today. No, I'm going to be a happy person. I'm going to be a person that says, we got more projects to do, people. We got to get on down the road. This is Bry. I got to go.